So Google, who owns YouTube, has come out with the new policies regarding the war in Ukraine. It says, "Dear publisher, due to the war in Ukraine, we will pause monetization of content that exploits, dismisses, or condones the war." So let's start right there. Exploits, dismisses, or condones. So you can't exploit it. I don't know what that means. You can't dismiss it or downplay it, but you also can't condone it. You can't upplay it, you can't downplay it, you can't condone it. Please note, we have already been enforcing on claims related to the war in Ukraine when they violated existing policies. For instance, the dangerous or derogatory content policy prohibits monetizing content that incites violence or denies tragic events. This update is meant to clarify and in some cases expand our publisher guidance as it relates to this conflict. This pause includes, but is not limited to, claims that imply victims are responsible for their own tragedy or similar instances of victim blaming, such as claims that Ukraine is committing genocide or deliberately attacking its own citizens. Until next time, the Google Ad Manager team. Okay, great. First of all, I think victim blaming is disgusting, obviously, and no victim should ever be blamed. But I'm just wondering what they're exactly saying, because to me, it sounds like Google/YouTube is saying we can ban any content that we want, because when you think about it, if you're talking about the war in Ukraine, almost anything, no matter how you talk about it, could be seen as one of those things, that it's either being exploitative, dismissive, or condoning of the war. Okay, so what if you say I stand with Ukraine? Is that condoning the war or exploitative? Exploiting it? I don't know. And what about if you talk about the Azov battalion, which is a battalion within the Ukrainian military that are Nazis, far-right extreme nationalist Nazis? Are we supposed to support them or not support them? Because I don't support Nazis, that's for sure. Now, the people of Ukraine are not Nazis, unless they're in the Azov battalion, which most Ukrainians are not in, obviously. Okay, but what about, let's take, speaking of Nazis, World War II. I mean, didn't the Nazis in Germany kill and commit genocide against their own people? So if this was that conflict, we couldn't talk about what the Nazis in Germany were doing to German Jews and other quote-unquote inferior races, according to the Nazis. I just find that astonishing. I mean, so do we say I support Ukraine, or is that's banished? Because I thought that's what we were supposed to do. And what if we're citing like the Atlantic Council? Let's see, from 2018. Ukraine's got a real problem with far-right violence. And no, RT didn't write this headline. How about NBC News? Ukrainian rabbi plays down neo-Nazi threat from nationalists. There's no big general Ukrainian problem, rabbi said. So with the Nazi swastika printed on Russian flag, That was 2014. How about Politico? Are we allowed to quote them about the Azov battalion, or is that against YouTube's rules? Politico, Ukraine's far-right menace, a bloody divorce between the Ukrainian government and country's ultra-nationalist groups could be in the offing. So, just questions. I mean, just seems like if Ukraine's government is working with or has Nazi battalions in its military. I mean, we know what the Nazis are capable of. I'm not accusing them of anything other than apparently being Nazis, which is pretty bad, I thought. I mean, I think it's pretty much the worst thing you could be, in my opinion. Are we allowed to talk about that? Or is that dismissing? Or is that exploiting? Or is that condoning? Or is that inciting? Or is it just saying what is and asking questions? That's my question to Google. I mean, what if these Ukrainian Nazis are doing what Nazis do and are, in fact, offing their own people, attacking their own people for one reason or another? I mean, the Nazis were really, in World War II, the German Nazis under Hitler were into, false flag attacks, blaming them on the communists. We know they were into eugenics, experimentation, and just murdering lots and lots of people that they didn't like. So is it off base to consider the possibility that these Nazis might do the same thing? But Google doesn't want us talking about that. I find that interesting.